was looking at the technology that we use in the NHS, and I feel like it's pretty outdated, and it's not personalized. So I thought, why don't we build out a tech platform that can connect you with someone that actually you want to see and do that online? I guess this was pre-COVID. So I thought if you can democratize it by creating an online way of doing it. So actually you could utilize a network of hundreds of clinicians because they're online. And therefore someone can actually match themselves or be matched with a clinician that's most suited to them, rather than this is the next one and you'll see them in 9 months.
Welcome to today's podcast episode of The Power Shift. And I have a very, very special guest here with me who I've known for quite some time now. One of the OGs from back in the day when the NHS Clinical Entrepreneur Fellowship or program started back in 2015, so 10 years ago. And he's going to be talking to us about a really important theme. And as you know me, I'm all about doctors building really great solutions to tackle some of the great problems, not only in healthcare and beyond, not only building something, but also taking full ownership of it and solving that problem at scale, whilst still connecting with the foundations of being a clinician. So in today's episode, we're going to be talking more about that with the one and only Dr. Julian Nesbitt. So Julian is not only a founder, CEO of the Dr. Julian Medical Group that has designed and curated and grown the Dr. Julian platform, but he's also a GP. And his mantra, this is something that we were talking about actually just before we started the podcast, is like, what does it do, right? What is the mission behind this? And really, we'll hear a little bit about a story. It's really about improving access to personalized mental health care from a problem that he experienced in his clinical day to day. So, welcome, Julian. How are you
Well,
today?
hello. Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me, Abeyna. Good to see you.
Great to see, and I'm so grateful to have this conversation with you on this podcast because you do have an incredible story, which you're still living day to day. And I'm just, yeah. Well, let's get in because at the end of the day, like I'm always really fascinated, increasingly fascinated by doctors who, like you, who have been able to move from that NHS mindset, as we know, like traditionally does not support or well, support innovation at scale, to what you've actually built while still being a clinician. But let's get back to the beginning of this. So could you tell us a little bit about like why medicine for you? Like why did you actually get into medicine in the first place?
Yeah, medicine. So I guess I love science. I always found that fascinating, but I wasn't really into sort of working in a laboratory. So I thought I was quite enjoy being around people. So I thought medicine was actually one of the only careers that you could combine science and being around people. So I guess that's kind of where that came from when I was at school. Yeah.
And when you joined medicine, did that scratch that itch?
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting, isn't it? Like medical school, you've got the science bit at the beginning. Went to Bristol, and then you had the clinical bit, which I really enjoyed it, to be honest. Yeah, and then I think, but then when you sort of do your F1, F2, it's more about practical kind of going through that day to day, but then you learn how to be a doctor. So to be honest, I mean, it's hard work, isn't it? But I think, yeah, no, I did really enjoy it. Or I do really enjoy it still.
Brilliant,
Yeah.
brilliant. And because I know a lot of people get into medicine to help people. I mean, I personally, I loved the human body. I was really fascinated about it. I love
Yeah.
biology as well. And but yeah, you get into medicine and it is a little bit more, I don't know, practical, systems driven, obviously. And not
Yeah.
necessarily exactly what you'd anticipated, but at the same time, it's clear that you still enjoy it. So, like, at what point did you decide, right, okay, I've practiced, but there needs to be something more here. I can see a problem and it's not
Yeah.
being solved.
Yeah, no, well, I think obviously you're kind of in a hamster wheel in a way, aren't you, in medicine? I think we're all very fed up of it, quite rightly, and we've been really undervalued as doctors. But I think still you huge satisfaction from helping people, and it's probably one of the biggest, it is the biggest factor in making someone happy, is to help someone else, right? So that, I think, is a privileged position that we are in. I guess I guess seeing problems, I kind of want to fix them. And working as an A&E doctor and as a GP now as well, I just, with mental health especially, I just saw huge waiting lists and people trying to kill themselves in A&E and asking why they're on these massive waiting lists, 9 to 12 months to get real help. Which was actually, the therapy was the thing that kind of cured them to get to actually deal with the issue in the first place, rather than necessarily, obviously antidepressants have a very strong place, especially in certain areas, but you, to sort of deal with the underlying issue, it was that they needed that therapy, but they weren't able to get it. And I think as well, like, I just saw loads of tick box exercises. So people in A&E would come down, tick box, off you go, leave, and they didn't get the help. So I was like, well, hang on, there's got to be a better way of trying to get someone help. And then I also was looking at the technology that we use in the NHS, and I feel like it's pretty outdated, and it's not personalized. So I thought, why don't we build out a tech platform that can connect you with someone that actually you want to see, and do that online? I guess this was pre-COVID. So I thought, if you can democratize it by creating an online way of doing it. So actually, you could utilize a network of hundreds of clinicians because they're online, and therefore someone can actually match themselves or be matched with a clinician that's most suited to them, rather than this is the next one and you'll see them in 9 months. And actually, that way, you can properly help someone, because in therapy, the therapeutic relationship is very important. As a GP myself, it's sort of less important because you come and deal with the issue and stuff. But when you're going through therapy, you really need to connect with that individual. So I think if you could create a platform that can connect you with the right person by utilizing a much wider network, that was the sort of theory behind the original idea. And I think I just took the leap, really. I mean, it's thinking about how that really happened. I've always been quite entrepreneurial. My sort of father was an entrepreneur, and I kind of had an itch to do something more, I guess, than just medicine.
Mm-hmm. So I hear that, like, you clearly saw a gap in the delivery of healthcare and getting better outcomes for patients that you were seeing, especially in an emergency care situation. And it's interesting to hear that your dad was an entrepreneur, because I've spoken to a whole lot of doctors, and obviously I mentor a lot of them on our Doctors in Industry program. And it's interesting because, like, the ones that do tend to have more of an entrepreneurial mindset are the ones that have actually been exposed to, like, business, whether it's family, whether it's friends, and actually, yeah, taking the leap. Because as doctors, doing anything beyond the traditional pathway, especially when, like, medicine is at your first degree, is like big risk, right?
Yeah.
And especially when you're in an environment where, like, taking risks, obviously, because it speaks patients' lives, is just not a thing. And so, like, thinking about, like, clearly, because a lot of doctors, like, we're professional problem solvers, right? We see things all the time that we're like, this needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to hear more about, like, at what point did you say, right, I am going to take that leap and actually do something, take action,
Yeah.
like, what was that trigger point for you?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Thinking back, when I think as a, I mean, yeah, I think as a doctor, you're kind of really working very hard, right? So it's kind of hard to think, okay, actually, let's try and build something. So I think I mean, it's been quite a journey back from, God, the original concept was at the end of 2015. And I kind of been doing this relatively slowly, building up, rather than sort of the rocket ship VC model, because I haven't raised VC funding. But I think the original thing was, okay, let's start small. Let's just create an app that could connect you with a clinician, and we'll try and do that privately to start with. So then we found some developers. I put a very small amount of money in, from family and friends, to build that original app, which was terrible, but it was.
Well,
But yeah, I guess
that's the thing. I just
yeah.
want to get back to that.
Uh,
Like, at the end of the
yeah,
day, we know the first iteration of anything is always going to
yeah,
be crap. Like, that's
yeah,
just a stand. That's just what you expect. So it's interesting.
yeah,
Like, you actually took the leap. People backed you. Like you
Yeah.
backed
Yes,
yourself,
I
but
was
also
able
your
to.
family and
Yeah.
friends backed you, and you
Yeah.
created something that at the time was the best thing that you could do with the resources of the
Exactly.
time and the knowledge and the technology available at the time that you had.
Well, I mean, everyone was building apps, right? So it's like, okay, let's build an app to connect you with a therapist. So that was where, okay, let's find a developer and build an app. And I found a foreign developer, and we built a really bad app. But that was the starting point to see, okay, let's give that a go. And at the time as well, I kind of joined the clinical entrepreneur program that was really helpful in that sense to kind of give you permission to do that, or give you some and say, let's just do it. Screw it. Let's just build an app. So that's kind of where we started with a terrible app. So yeah.
Great, great. I mean,
Yeah.
again, the first iteration, always the worst one, always the worst. By the time you're like, this will work, and that's the expectation, isn't it? You've just got to start
Yeah,
something,
exactly.
and I always talk about like the clarity, like learning, like is actually in the process of developing it, isn't it? And
Exactly.
then taking it to market and going, I've got this product, is the
Yeah.
first iteration, it's the demo, get
Yes,
get feedback on it.
exactly.
Like is this something that can grow? Like what do we need to change? And like what you start with isn't what you end with. You know what I mean? Like that's just the norm. And
Exactly.
so at the time, did you think it was crap?
No, I think, well, I think it's great to get the first iteration out there. I think for me, the biggest thing was actually what is okay, that you can build a process for someone to get the support, but the biggest thing was they need the right clinician, right? And it's actually the clinician that is doing the lifting there. Yes, we're trying to build some technology to get you the right clinician, but um, it doesn't matter if the tech's not very good to start with if you've got good clinicians behind it that can actually get that, to that human being. And obviously then it grows arms and legs with the technology to see what you can do to make that better. And it's been on a big journey. But I think what was useful on our side was there was a real need. And I think also like building something where there's no need is the biggest mistake people make. So I think where we were lucky was you've got people needed therapy and they needed it quickly. And this was a way to deliver that. So I think, forget the bad technology. That was the key thing. So that's kind of why that worked initially. But yeah, we to start out, we tried to do it on the privately, but obviously when you do it privately, you need a lot of marketing money, which we didn't have. So we did try some Google AdWords and stuff, but that kind of didn't work very well. And you look at now other private providers spending millions a day on marketing. It's like, no, let's not do that. So I was very lucky that I was banging on the doors of different NHS trusts and services, and they were really struggling and needed some extra support. So I managed to get the first very small contract in Thurrock, actually, where we were like, let me help see some of your patients. We've got really good clinicians who are also, NHS trained, accredited, etc. So they were like, okay, let's send you some of those. So that was kind of where it was, okay, now validated by having a sort of B2B, or providing some NHS work initially. And at the beginning, I phoned every patient, apologized for the technology, but said, we've got really good clinicians. Can you give us feedback? And it was great because we saw people quickly with the right clinicians. And then I guess that was the foothold that allowed us to then grow that.
Well, I mean, I think that's really incredible. There's so many nuggets of gold within that. Um, I mean, where to start? I guess it's I know this isn't the best technology, but still having the balls to go and sell it to the NHS. And knock, as you said, like knocking on doors, like being, hey, I'm a clinician. I'm here to solve a problem that you have, right?
Yeah.
I'm here to solve the problem because like one of the challenges I see a lot of doctors at all everywhere, but also the ones we mentor, they all start with like, okay, I've got this solution and I'm selling the solution. And it's like,
Got
people
to be a
people want
problem.
their problem solved,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And they want
Exactly.
an outcome. That's what they're paying for. That's what they'll engage with you for. Like everyone has ideas. There's
Yeah.
like billions of ideas happening like this second, but like most of them will not come to fruition because as you said, there's a lot of building stuff that people don't need. And so getting that early validation, especially with the countries, like one of the country's biggest employers, is like a massive achievement. It's a massive achievement, a massive milestone to achieve so early on in your journey with this product. and as an entrepreneur. And that's a really great example of how, even at an early stage, you're backing your idea, you're believing. So I'd love to hear like what was going through your mind, because and also calling the patients, but like what was going through your mind when it's like you're actually having the conversations with those decision makers in the NHS, like how much did you really believe in what you were doing? A lot of doctors talk about imposter syndrome and being like, well, I shouldn't really be in this room. I should just be like seeing patients. Like, I'm really curious.
Yeah, I think we were lucky in the sense that, and I think this is why necessarily we've been more successful, is that there was a problem. Forget the technology for a start, right? The technology was the enabler, and obviously now it's growing arms and legs and doing lots of things. But initially, the core problem is huge waiting lists. Can you give extra capacity? So that is a problem everywhere, and that is a problem that you can get traction for because it is a problem. So if you go to someone saying, "I can support you with your waiting list," they're like, actually, I really want that. So forget the technology to start with. That was a core issue. So therefore, you get people actually listening to you because they need help with their waiting list. So rather than trying to sell a technology, if you sell that type of problem, then it's easier to sell. And I think, again, as clinicians, we are in a unique position where we are living problems day to day. So we kind of know what those problems are. And if you try and sell something someone's never going to use, or a new app that it's actually, it might be great, but they've got no time or they can't use it, then that's a much more hard, much harder sell. So if you can find something that solves someone's serious problem, then they're willing to listen to you and buy it. So yeah, and that's kind of where we were lucky in that sense. And I
Mhm.
think being a clinician helps, and you know what those issues are, and you live that firsthand, so you can really have those conversations. But you've got to just go for it and knock on the doors and be relentless. And yeah, it's hard because it's just trying to carry on and keep going. If you think that, if you're really passionate and you do know that there is an issue, then people are listening to you about that issue, then you've got validation for that.
Absolutely. Like as you said, like identifying the problem's got to be big enough and expensive enough to be
Yeah.
solved for people to actually be like, right, we'll invest in this and we'll use your product. And I guess like going back to some of the mindset challenges that doctors face when backing their ideas. What do you think holds doctors, a lot of doctors back from actually going and building it, like building a solution for the problems that they see?
I think doctors are conditioned to be in the hamster wheel, aren't they? That's what we've got to we have very rigid structure that we follow, and it's scary, isn't it, to say let's try and do something else, and it's not as safe or whatever. I think interestingly though, we are also in a very good position as a doctor if you can carry on keeping a registration. There's a fallback plan, so you're not actually giving up everything and putting everything on the line. You've still got a job at the end of the day. So I think in a way, doctors should be more brave in that sense, because it's not like you're losing out potentially everything of your life. So I think we're just conditioned to sort of follow a process rather than trying to change the norm. I guess my brain is always doesn't ever follow any rules. So I guess I kind of, that's the way I think. So I just wanted to go and change things. But yeah, it depends. Like different people have different ways of thinking, right? So it depends on your risk appetite and who you are as a human being. But yeah, we're kind of conditioned, I think.
Yeah, it definitely depends on your risk appetite. Absolutely. Being in the hamster wheel, I think the distractions as well, right?
Yeah.
I look back and it's like I spent a lot of time doing exams.
Well,
Like
exactly.
there's
There's so
always the
much to
next
do.
thing, or like the next competency, or the next appraisal, and I did not have time to even kind of look up. Well, obviously, as you said, you and I are quite different, right? And there's always that itch going like, actually, there's something bigger out there, like need to pursue it and need to fix these and solve these challenges. Um, and yeah, they usually come from like a real personal desire, whether it's a personal experience or like what you've described, or something where you're like, a justice mission. It's like this problem is so big. I'm just fed up of like seeing if I see one more patient like so yeah. And I guess for you, what was the biggest mindset shift that you had to take in order to go from clinician to founder CEO?
Yeah, I think again, I kind of am I, I'm luckier in the sense that my brain is like that. So I want to take a I don't just want to I didn't just want to be in that hamster wheel. I was like, I love medicine, I love helping people, but I feel like there was a bigger thing I could do to help more people because I saw a real problem and I was really passionate about it. So I thought, actually, if you're passionate about something, it's not a job. It's actually something, you enjoy doing it despite the challenges and how hard it is and the roller coaster that you go on. But if you're passionate about it, it's actually you can keep going by doing it. So I think that's where I thought, let's do this to try and help more people. And actually, I see a real problem. I think there's a way of fixing it. So I think it's kind of hard to know why, but I think my brain's just wired for that in that sense. So I just sort of took the leap and said,
Mm.
but having said that, I'm not as big a risk taker as some because I still carried on being a doctor, right? So I've always so that's actually a lot of people just go take the leap, leave medicine completely, whereas I didn't. Maybe I'm not as big a risk taker as I should
I
be.
think it depends on the reasons why you continue to be a doctor at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? Like, why did you continue?
Yeah. I really enjoy that. I'm very, very privileged as well. So because I switched to being a GP from an A&E trainee because I was like that you can't as an A&E trainee doing loads of shifts is more difficult. So again, uh we you're very fortunate as a GP because you can actually I then went part-time. So if you can go I went 60% or whatever. So I had quite a lot of time in that sense to sort of pursue something, but still, yeah, still carry on being a doctor. And then now I'm very privileged because I only work a day a week as a GP and I'm still able to do that. And I think that's very, as a consultant surgeon, it's very hard to just work one day a week, whereas as a GP, you can. Um, and that again, I know how hard it is being a GP, and God, I don't know how anyone does it full time, to be honest. But doing it one day gives me that real pleasure of seeing an individual and helping that individual and
Mm-hmm.
keeping you on the front line. So I really enjoy, and I'm privileged to be able to still do that. And again, you don't get so burnt out because you're only doing that hard day one day a week. But yeah, I mean, I feel for anyone doing it full time, to be honest. But yeah,
Yeah. So for you, it's not really about risk. It's about like fulfilling that need, um, and joy of actually seeing patients and actually, as you
yeah,
said, like being
exactly.
on that front line as a
Yeah,
founder, especially when you stop doing the clinical and you're in a clinical business, you're in a health tech business. It's so easy to lose sight of the grassroots of where you came from, especially if you don't have that clinical, you're not having that clinical exposure anymore, so to speak,
yeah.
because there's so much else that you're doing. And so I see that as being like that grounding mechanism for you
I think
that will
yeah, and my brain
continue to
needs
give you
variety.
that feedback and the variety.
My brain needs variety, right? And I like doing 100 different things. So it gives, and I love diagnosis. I love diagnosing. So I kind of, that's a challenge. So my brain needs constant challenges. So I kind of enjoy that variety that I get from that and the satisfaction of helping that individual. It's, you come to the end of the day and it's a privilege to be able to do it, I think. So
No, absolutely, absolutely. It always is. And I guess how do you separate? I'm actually curious. How do you separate being a clinician? Like, for example, you get a patient that comes in and could definitely do with Dr. Julian's platform. How do you separate them?
well, yeah, I'm not really allowed to talk about it in that sense, but you just be a GP that day, don't you? And you
Yeah,
put
yeah,
them
you
to
have a
the
different
right
hat on, don't
place.
you?
You refer them to the right place that you're supposed to, and yeah, you just have a different hat on. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. No, it's absolutely true. Because like even in occupational health, when I'd see doctors who I thought actually I could definitely help you, I would just never mention it.
yeah,
It just like it's just completely different context, a completely different remit. And then some of them would actually just look me up anyway, and
yeah,
then
yeah,
come to me outside of that. But
sure, yeah,
it's like because at the end of the day, you want to help people to the best of your ability, right? But
yeah,
then when you're in a system, you've really got to stick with those boundaries of the
yes,
system, and then you've got the medical legal indemnity, blah 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 blah. So, but as
yeah,
long as you know what those boundaries are, it's still absolutely manageable. So I'd love to move on to like talking about commercials,
yeah,
right? Like the commercial confidence more specifically, right? Because that's one of the things that tends to hold doctors back. They're like, whether they're building a business, whether they're moving the industry, it's like, I don't know I don't know what it's like to be commercial. I don't know how to present myself as commercial. I need to go and do an MBA. Um, so I guess the question is for you, like, what helped you get confident, like talking about money, pricing, investment, ROI, value? This is gonna save your, like, how did
Yeah.
you develop that in this process? What does developing commercial confidence even look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I just learned along the way. And
Yeah.
if you just have to learn along the way and speak to people that know what they're talking about and learn from them as well. So just making sure you're talking to people that understand that already. But the biggest thing for me was just to make mistakes on the way and learn from them. So look, I've not really raised much money. I've kind of bootstrapped it. So we've had to make money to then fund the development of our technology. So again, it was like, right, well, what makes money? Okay, so we charge for doing the therapy and then we can fund the technology, which then leads to other things of where we can utilize our technology more. But that was the commercial aspect, right? So make sure you're making a profit on what do people normally charge? We're actually cheaper, but we can be more efficient with our platform. So therefore, we can charge less, but still but deliver better care. So that makes a lot of sense by being more efficient. So you just have to, you look at the top line, the bottom line, and you go, right, well, we make a profit. That's important, So that's kind of in that sense, like from delivering a therapy session, the commercials were not that hard to figure out because it's like, right, well, what's the cost? What's your what are your costs? What are you going to charge? And then look at what that profit is, and then where can you spend that money? Now, look, at the beginning you have to do everything. I'm useless at sort of accounting and stuff, but you had to do it, and you just learn how to do that. But yeah, I just learned along the way, and I think we've got to be not scared of trying to make money in that sense, because by making the money you can then fund and develop other things that help more people. So I think it's yeah, I mean, successful organizations that can make a profit can then actually grow faster and help more. So I think that's part of the thing. We've got to not be scared of trying to make money in that sense, because you can do more with it then.
I'm going to repeat that. Don't be scared about making money.
Yeah,
Right?
because it helps
Don't
more
be
people.
scared. But
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's like this is what I've been banging my drums about for some time now, because as you know, we don't talk about money in healthcare. We don't talk about money in medicine, and doctors and money don't really go together unless we're striking because we've been underpaid for a long time because we don't like to talk about money, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Um, but but that's the reality of it. Like if you are able to build a profitable business that you control because you're bootstrapping. And for those people that don't know what bootstrapping is, it means not raising money from external funds. You're literally um, providing a service and reinvesting the money and the profit back into the business so it can grow. But as you said, the reality is if your company is making a good amount of money, it means it can grow faster. And because you're not relying on external money from like VCs, like venture capitalists or private equity funds or other external investors, you still retain control of your business, or more control of your business than you would do otherwise. And that's a good thing. And I know a lot of doctors really struggle with that idea of bootstrapping doesn't get talked about, right? Everyone's talking about how much money they raise, but like not many
Yeah.
people talk about actually we're not raising money, we're just making sure it's profitable and sustainable. Um, but yeah, the whole like, profitability for social good. Do you know what I
Well,
mean?
yeah, no, exactly. Well, my opinion on the VC thing now, it's taken us longer, and we've been more of the sort of slow and steady approach because we haven't bootstrapped. And there's certain cases where raising money is brilliant and obviously can rocket ship you and stuff. But I've just seen so many in healthcare. Unfortunately, with healthcare, it takes time, especially if you're trying to sell to the NHS. It takes a long time. And if you raise VC money, they don't have time. You've got to make this profit quickly. And then there's why so many there's a lot of issues because health tech companies can't move that quickly because it's just the reality of the situation that we're in. So then you've got issues because then you're controlled by people that don't necessarily understand the system as much as well as you do, and tell you what to do, and then and then the whole mission goes, it doesn't work anymore. So I've seen that too many times. So I think if you can do something to bootstrap it to a certain point, then I think that's good. I mean, obviously, if you've then got a very clear plan of actually no, you can scale this massively now and you need the money to scale it, then brilliant. That's when you go and raise the money.
And like I'm a real advocate of bootstrapping because it then forces you to take a real lean approach where there's not a
Yes.
lot of waste. But also you really have to be analytical as to like what is it that's actually going to grow this business? Because we
Yeah.
don't have all the funds, we don't have all the resources, and you've got to get creative with how you're going to
Yes.
get to your next milestone. But when you've got like a lot of cash floating about, you can see, you're a little bit more laissez-faire about it, which
Yes.
again, like, so I see it as like a really good like diligence practice to be in that kind of resource poor situation so that you don't end up spending on things that aren't necessarily going to move the needle so much. And then once you know what that formula is, then get the investment is in to grow quicker,
Exactly.
you
Yeah,
know?
exactly. And it's harder because the business is all about the team around you that grow the bit. Like it's about having the best team. And obviously, if you haven't got the money
Absolutely.
to pay them a huge amount of money, then that makes it slightly more difficult. But if you can
Yeah.
have a mission and a company that's values driven and also people, you can get good people by giving them some incentives with equity and things, then you can actually grow it that way. So I think it's, it is harder by not paying someone loads, but also sometimes by going and paying top people, they're not the best people. You want someone to grow with you, and that's what we found. So actually, you don't just hire a senior executive because actually sometimes they don't do any work. They just sort of sit there. You want someone that's a grafter to sort of go with you.
I'm really glad that you mentioned that. Have you read this
Yeah.
book? Good to
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Exactly that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, but just for anyone that, I know we're talking a lot of business here, guys. But this book is really all about, they did a lot of research on like, this is a US book about all the greatest companies in the world and how they went from good to great and what was the formula behind it. One was the type of leaders they had at the helm. And two was and those leaders were not like superstars or celebrities or anything like that. They were literally homegrown and they
Yeah.
just continued doing like under the radar really good things.
Yeah.
And as you said, like made sure the right people are in the right seats for the
Yes.
business.
And
So,
the person has to be passionate and a hard
mm,
worker, especially as in a startup, you have to do so much. And I'm very lucky that I've got some very good people around me that have been amazing with growing it. But yeah, we they're not senior executives. They've grown with the business, and
yeah,
that has then, but they've learned so much on the way, and now they're operating at a level of a senior executive, but having done that inside the business, and therefore have the
yeah,
passion, drive the because I mean, I've made that mistake. I've hired senior people that have done their work and taken loads of money out of the business and totally pointless and actually drained the resources. So basically, that was my learning. Don't do that.
yeah. Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, join the club, join the club. Um, let's talk a little bit about value. What actually creating value is beyond clinical as a doctor. So a lot of doctors do struggle as to understand like what is it? Where's my value beyond
Yeah.
clinical, right? Well, you and me, we know what that is, but a lot of doctors really struggle to really understand that. And so I mean, having been on your journey, what do you feel that doctors misunderstand about creating value for others, not just patients, but also for, the sector, healthcare,
Yeah.
companies, people? Like, I know it's a very broad question, but how would you answer that?
Well, I get so value comes down to what that individual doctor sees as what's important or not. And I guess, well, for me, it's like, okay, can we solve this big problem that is there? And that's therefore valuable because you're helping solve an issue that can help a lot of people. So I guess I think, but there are some doctors that see value in their day-to-day job, which is absolutely fine as well. So it's just a case of what that individual sees as a problem that they are passionate about to solve. And that, I guess, is the value. Now, I come back to it again, like, if you look at the psychology, I find the psychology fascinating of brains and what makes us human and stuff. And if helping people is probably the most satisfying and dopamine enhancing way of making someone happy. So it's not about the money or so if you can find a way to deal with something that you're passionate about to solve a problem that helps someone, to me, that's the biggest value in my book anyway.
Yeah, I mean, like, at the end of the day, we're here to help people, and the challenge of doing it purely as a clinician is you're doing it on a one-to-one, right?
Yes, exactly. So
And
if you
so, I
do
mean,
a bigger
how
thing.
many people now would you say you've helped through Dr. Julian platform?
So, well, so we're on about 250,000 appointments ourselves, and then through our
There you
tech
go.
others, we're about 1 million appointments at the moment. So yeah,
There you go. You know, like the power, the influence, the scale, the number of patients and stories that have come out of that where it's like I couldn't get the mental health support that I needed. So I went on Dr. Julian's platform. I found a therapist. We've got a great relationship. That transformed my life because it meant I didn't have to wait for ages. I didn't have to stay off work for ages. You know,
yeah,
all of those things. And also like NHS waiting lists. I like, you know, the list goes on, right?
yeah.
Um, and that
And
that
for me,
came
yeah,
from you.
yeah,
Like
and for
just like
me,
say,
it's like
seeing the problem and
yes,
then doing something that was not perfect by any means
yeah.
and
I mean, the
actually
greatest
seeing it through. You
exactly.
know,
I think
like I just want to like highlight that,
yeah,
known
you
for
just got
this
to be
podcast.
relentless.
Yeah,
Yeah, you just got to be
relentless.
relentless. But I think the greatest satisfaction is like reading the Trustpilot reviews. We've got amazing Trustpilot reviews and stuff, and people being helped. I think, and for me, like the real vision there was we don't provide personalized care, right? So if you have a patient dashboard where you can choose your own clinician, you can book appointments, you can have self-help tools and resources suited to you in one place in your own sort of patient-facing side, then you can empower people and give them more help, the help that with the person that most suits them with the right resources and tools, etc. So that I think makes a real difference, and I really have that passion to provide more personalized care moving forward, which is what the platform allows. But yeah, the biggest sort of value that you can get is to see the people that are being helped and the feedback that you get from that.
Absolutely. So one of my final questions. I mean, we've talked about commercialization, we've talked about execution from ideas, taking a problem first or problem solving approach rather than ideas first approach.
Yeah.
As we know, with all of these journeys, especially being a leader, especially being a builder, especially being an entrepreneur, like there's always a sacrifice, right? There's always a challenges. Like, what would you say they have been for you in this journey? That people like doctors like need to know if they're deciding to go on this journey, or even
I
the
mean,
ones that are on this
yeah.
journey and who are like, oh my God, I'm the only one.
It's bloody hard. I
Hmm.
mean, you go through a lot, and it's really hard in terms of, the emotional toil when it's. I know I made so many mistakes. I've had so many problems. I've pretty much gone through so many things where you're like literally the turmoil of like the emotions and people trying to screw you over, and then the loads of things that happen, and not being able, being at the brink of it failing and then trying to work out. But I guess it's just an emotional roller coaster that I think, again, if you're passionate about something that is a problem, and you just keep going. I think that's where I was able to do that. But if you're not passionate about something, then that's where you may not do that as well. And also it's
Well,
got
you'll
to,
give up.
yeah,
You know,
you'll give up,
you
but
ain't
it's
be
bloody
having
hard.
this
but
conversation.
but as I said, you go through your lows, and then you go through your highs, and then you go through your lows, and then you go through further, like more deeper lows, and then you take one step forward, five steps back, and then you give a. So I think, but
The roller coaster.
you just have to keep your mind on what is the bigger picture. Are you doing something for you? And I think you're lucky in the sense that you're doing something that you believe in, therefore it's kind of not work. It's something that you enjoy doing, and I think that's the real privilege that you have. And I think we've kind of evolved from being a therapy provider on our tech-enabled service side to now also providing infrastructure for healthcare with our platform in different ways. So I think it's things evolve, and and you just evolve with it, of what of what works, what people needing, or what are people wanting, and you just have to go with the flow on that as well, and you just sort of evolve it, as things go, and you have to pivot, and you have to work out what's working, what's not working, and so long as you can keep that open mindset and pivot and stuff, then you'll be successful.
Absolutely. I mean, it's relentless, isn't it? It
Yeah,
never stops, no matter how big or small your business is. it's still the same thing. There's never this like panacea that you get to where it's like, oh, now everything's calm forever. Like if you've got a business, you'll always have problems, but you'll always be doing some really amazing stuff. And so it's just really to manage expectations for those who are on that journey or considering that journey. Um, this is what you're buying into. And as you've described, it is the passion, it is the commitment as well to that vision, to that mission. That's the
Yeah.
most important thing. And like if you're really are committed to it and you've really got to reconnect with that, then you will be successful in seeing that through. Um, and yeah, but as you said, it is bloody hard. It really, really is hard, but it is a privilege as
Yes.
well to actually, as you said, it's not work. It doesn't feel like it's work where you show up, you do a shift, and then you go home, right?
Yeah.
It's like actually kind of lucky to just have monetized your hobby massively, you
Yes.
know?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
and and actually I honestly believe that everyone in this world should have the opportunity to monetize their hobbies because most hobbies are helping people in some way, you know?
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of businesses come out from. Like I go to the farmers market in down the road every week, and you see a lot of people who have just started making stuff, and then they're like, "Oh, people actually like this stuff, right? I'll just sell it."
Yeah. And if you
So
do something you enjoy, you keep going. If you're passionate about it, you keep going. So, but you've just got to
yeah,
take the leap and do it.
take the leap and do it. So my final question, like this podcast is called The Power Shift. What's one power shift you'd want every doctor to make this year by the end of 2025?
Interesting. I think it's just follow your passion, and if you see a problem, then follow it and just take the leap. That is in, don't think you can't do it because you can. If you're passionate enough and you actually have got a real problem, then go and solve it. Don't just sit back and not take that leap, I'd say.
Absolutely. And I wanted to add to that something that I was reminded of yesterday. Indecision costs more than making a decision or the wrong decision. There
Just
is
be
no
brave.
such there is no
That's
such
it.
thing as a wrong or right decision. But
Yeah,
if you do not make that decision, that is what costs more. If you
exactly.
don't take action, that is what is costing you more. And I think having that mindset shift will get you, hopefully having listened to this podcast episode, doing what you need to do.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
exactly.
thank you so much for this really incredible, insightful episode. So where can doctors learn more about what you're building and or reaching out?
Yeah, I've got a LinkedIn, so Dr. Julian Nesbitt, feel free to connect with me and chat with me on that. I mean, you can just Google Dr. Julian if you want to find out more about us. We have a website and things, and yeah, I mean, our website needs to be better right now. But again,
Oh,
I have
you'll
no
always be
money.
saying that.
I've got
You'll
no money to spend on
always be
marketing. So
You'll always be saying that,
yeah,
Julian. You'll
no, it
always
is.
be saying that. Like at the end of the day, because like we see our businesses like constantly. So you know all the things that are like
Yeah.
wrong in inverted commas with it. As I was having a conversation with one of my entrepreneurial doctor friends last night on WhatsApp at 10, 11 o'clock. And they were like, Abeyna, like, love all your stuff. Your marketing, it's gone up another level. I see you everywhere. It's so slick. And I'm like, oh my God, the whole day I've been like literally banging my head against a brick wall about this in itself. It's just not good enough. So again, I think it's really our mindset as entrepreneurs.
No, I know. Well, I've just had
Because
no money
people
to
don't
spend on
see
marketing.
what we see and vice versa.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but yeah, follow like find me on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest way.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Julian. It's great to do this
Great to see you.
today.
Thanks, Abeyna. Cheers.